Well, how about this for a joke? China has released a 12-point policy paper calling on Russia and Ukraine to hold peace talks as soon as possible. Now, the United States has claimed that China is considering sending weapons to Russia, which of course is a claim the communist country denies. Let's bring in Andrew Phelan, who's an expert on all things China, and he was formerly DFAT's Australia-China Council, or with the Council. Andrew, China's trying to cast itself as a neutral party here, while it's clearly maintaining close ties with Russia.
Exactly right, Caleb. A 12-point so-called peace plan dropped this afternoon, Eastern summertime. And there's a couple of good things about it. They're kind of red lines for China. For example, leave nuclear power plants alone. There's a kind of veiled mention to Putin not to go down the nuclear weapons route. They also want grain exports to continue out of the Ukraine. And if you read into that, a lot of that grain goes to African countries where China has a very big footprint. So in a nutshell, this 12-point plan is really about China's interests. But now, at the same time, they have a saying in China, they say going by the Homen or the back door. And Der Spiegel is reporting that the Russians are in discussion with a drone maker out of Xi'an to acquire 100 units of a kamikaze drone that can drop a payload of 50 kilograms, similar to the one that the Russians have been using from Iran. So, on the surface, peace plan, but you've got to look at the intent behind it.
Indeed. Now, the US says it's going to more than quadruple its troops in Taiwan amid the rising threat from China, of course, and it comes as we learn more details about China's secret surveillance program in the way of these spy boys they've had watching nuclear subs. Is this the largest deployment of special operations forces in decades?
Yeah, it is. It's they doubled the presence, but it was a very small base to begin with. I believe they had about 30 personnel on the ground in Taiwan. It's going to eventually double up to a couple of hundred. And what I would say is, prevention is better than cure, and as Ukraine shows us, deterrent is better than disaster. So, America has a fairly covert program to get as many Taiwan's military and special forces trained up as best they can during this window of a potential opportunity from Xi Jinping. On the boys, China has a vast, they're the largest military in the world in terms of sea mines, and also boys are designed for submarine surveillance. This is another reason why they don't want Australia going down the quiet nuclear submarine route. They also use a good deal of, as we've seen in the air, in the sea, in all those domains where they see that they can have an advantage in asymmetrically monitoring US activity. In fact, a sea mine just washed ashore in Japan just recently.
Now, Victoria Police has now joined this list of government bodies to rip and replace all these Chinese-made security cameras from their buildings amidst foreign interference concerns, and we've learnt there are potentially thousands of these cameras across the country. Should we join the UK and just ban them altogether?
It depends on the technology, but anything that has a interface with the internet is potentially vulnerable to sharing information with the CCP. Now, we've known this for quite some time, but I'm very encouraged by the Victorian government going down this route because it's critical that we operate in a unified way in Australia. And China's been very good at exposing our soft underbelly, which is provincial governments, provincial police forces, local area governments, and so on is where they've been playing. And, Mike Pompeo made that point in his Wisconsin address that America needs to be better coordinated at all tiers of government in terms of handling the China challenge.